So I'm a physical oceanographer, and what that means is I don't deal with dolphins or whales or any of like sort of the visually nice things that you would see on like National Geographic or something. I study like the physical system of how the ocean flows, like why it flows that way. In Japan, you study really hard to get into university. That's sort of like pitched as your life goal in a way in Japan. Like if you fail university, like you're basically a failure in life. And it's only the name. It doesn't really matter what you do after you enter the university. It's just a matter of which university name you get to enter.
That sounds like a lot of parallels with Russia, to be honest.
So I've been in the US for 12 years. And basically, in the most simple terms, I got bored of the US. I got bored of its politics, bored of, I don't know, lifestyle there.
What do you do at Fistech, the Russian MIT, as they call it?
And some people in the US also do acknowledge MIPT this way, as, you know, the Russian MIT or the flagship university of Russia. Yes, I think there is some handicap. And at international conferences too, I have noticed once they know that I am situated in Russia, some people do change their tone. The fact that I'm non-Russian in a Russian academia sometimes seems to confuse them how they react.
What's it like?
Well, some people just stop talking.
Hello guys, welcome to another video of Braden Consulting, and today we have Takaya Uchida with us. Thank you, Takaya, so much for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And we're going to be talking relocating to Russia and living in Russia from the perspective of having lived in 3 different countries. So Japan, the States, and now here, basically.
Also France.
Also France. Okay, so literally 3 countries. Okay, perfect. Well, really, France. Tell me about that. Where was France at what point of your life?
France was during COVID, so that would be like I moved there October 2019, was there for 3 years, so 2022 October? Yeah, I guess something like that. And then after that, I moved to Florida December 2022, I think. Yeah.
How was COVID in France?
La situation de l'épidémie en France est très inquiétante, elle se détériore très vite, c'est une épidémie très rapide, on voit que le nombre de cas double désormais tous les 3 jours.
As the government was getting ready to further beef up restrictions, the mood went from carelessness to panic.
It was surreal and also dystopian, I guess. I mean, all the lockdowns, digital IDs that came with vaccination. So I was one of the few who did not take the vaccine and got a fake ID, basically.
Yeah, we had the same thing in Russia. You could do that as well.
Yeah. Well, in Europe, I've heard stories from Russians of how it was, at least in Moscow, but as far as I can tell from the personal stories, it was much more strongly enforced within France, at least where I was. Like there would be cops walking around. And because it's a lockdown, basically, you know, you would stick out if you're hanging out because the city's kind of empty.
It's like Wall-E mode, right?
Yeah. So I'd be like lurking around, like looking like around the corner to see if there's any cops or not when I was, you know, going out to a friend's place for drinks or something. I did manage to find a bar that didn't check the pass, but they only took cash payment, you know, to leave no record, which to me was perfectly fine. But yeah, so I was like, okay, well, so yeah, when the lockdowns and mandated vaccinations came in, I was like, well, I'm gonna wait for like a month. I'm sure it'll just kind of go away. And it didn't. So yeah, that's when I had a few local friends, fortunately, who knew some people. Well, I had to pay for it, but yeah, who would fabricate an ID for me. So
was it expensive?
It was in rubles, I would say like 30K.
Okay, so about like $300,
300 euros, something like this. Yeah. But, you know, I had to do it every time because they kept on increasing the number of vaccinations. So I made a fake ID twice. But, using that, I was able to fly internationally. Like in Japan, they were confused because it was written in French, basically. But, I just talked my way through it at the Japanese customs.
Dear viewer, if you're thinking about moving to Russia, this announcement is for you. Our company specializes in helping foreign citizens to relocate to Russia. We handle the relocation process from start to finish, turnkey, so to speak. We have over 200 cases under our belt. We help with relocations not only to Moscow and St. Petersburg, but also to any other region of Russia. Please note that all our consultations are completely free. Join our Migration Telegram channel, where you will not only find answers to many of your questions, but also find like-minded people. The link is in the description. Are the Japanese customs friendlier than the Russian customs?
Anywhere's heaven compared to U.S. customs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the U.S. border control is the worst as far as I can tell. They are rude. I assume they're severely underpaid.
Okay.
So they don't care about the job, I think. They will take out their frustration towards the passengers. That's how I see it. But yeah, the system is not efficient. At least in Russia, I think the system works pretty smoothly. Well, at the airports, at least. Oh, that's my impression. I've never, again, I'm not American, although I have spent a lot of time in the U.S. So I think the experience for me is, because I do know individual friends who have had a hard time at the Russian airport who are Americans.
Yeah, have you ever been stopped yourself?
Also me, no. And maybe that also has to do with the HQS visa that I have, which kind of protects me, I suppose. Yeah, to me, the Russian airport works perfectly fine.
Okay, do you usually come to Vnukovo?
That just depends on the cheap flight. Yeah.
Definitely. We all can relate to that one. But I remember at some point, even like when I was, I remember being a kid and people like telling me, I've had a story recently, like someone told me that like, oh my God, a flight to London was like £100 at some point from Moscow. So just referring to cheap flights, like back in 2004, it was like £100 from London to Moscow and back. One way.
Yeah, that's cheap, right?
Yeah, that's super cheap. Yeah. So it's like 120 euros.
Yeah.
And it was like a 3:30 flight, so it was crazy. Yeah. Nowadays.
The price increase is international, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like the level of inflation in Russia is still moderated, I feel. But yeah, the subway prices are going up here.
Oh, God, yeah. I remember it being like 35. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. You're a scientist, and can you just tell us what you do, and actually how did you come about the fact that you're doing this? What sparked your interest in oceanography?
Yeah. So I'm a physical oceanographer, and what that means is I don't deal with dolphins or whales or any of like sort of the visually nice things that you would see on like National Geographic or something. I study like the physical system of how the ocean flows, like why it flows that way. And it does include like prediction, like forecast of the ocean. Fishermen use this information, for example, to try to predict, where they would get a big catch. I assume some like ship navigation systems also use this for like some sort of forecasting system of the ocean. But yeah, I don't do any of those application studies. To me, I do more of on the fundamental side of like just like applying fluid dynamics to the framework of the ocean. So I did my undergrad in Japan, and when you're in your third year in undergrad in Japan is 4 years in total. So when you're in your third year, there's like this mass, I would say, psychosis where everyone just starts trying to find a job, or at least trying to do an internship somewhere that would lead to employment. And I just felt uneasy with, like, in Japan, you study really hard to get into university. That's sort of like pitched as your life goal in a way in Japan. Like, if you fail university, like, you're basically a failure in life. And it's only the name. It doesn't really matter what you do after you enter the university. It's just a matter of which university name you get to enter.
That sounds like a lot of parallels with Russia, to be honest.
I don't really know the Russian education system yet, so I can't really say. But I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it really, I totally see that.
I felt like, yeah, you worked so hard to get into, well, in hindsight, well, if I had the knowledge I have now, I would probably like ditch this whole idea of like trying to get to a good university, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, back then I was still, naive, I suppose. But yeah, so you work so hard to get into a university, and then, you know, you spend 2-3 years, and then bam, like, you're like, now you have to find a job. And I'm like, life like this is so boring. And I was like, I don't want to go down this track of like, just find a job, settling down, getting a house, get a car, whatever. So that's when I started, I guess, looking for other options. And I suppose the most obvious, well, not obvious, but I guess straightforward option for someone who's gone through college education was to go to grad school. So yeah, I decided that going to grad school would probably be an option. And then, but I didn't want to pay tuition anymore. So then, from some alumni of my university, I got the information that if you did a PhD in the US, you would get paid with stipend free. So I was like, okay, this is it. And then after that, I decided I figured out what I was going to do for my PhD. That was something I never really thought about, of, you know, what I wanted to do for a living in a way. I happen to be pretty good at physics, and I like going to the beach. So, you know, physical oceanography, like physics of the ocean, seemed like a good middle ground. But yeah, that's essentially how I see how I came to it in hindsight.
Cool. I mean, and what did you do your bachelor's in?
It was environmental engineering, so it was like a broad sweep of renewable energy, new materials like carbon fiber, anything that would relate to reducing like environmental destruction or pollution, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, gotcha. What do you do at FISTech, the Russian MIT, as they call it?
And some people in the U.S. also do acknowledge MIPT this way, as, you know, the Russian MIT or the flagship university of Russia. Yeah, I'm a senior researcher at FISTech in ocean physics. I do a lot of analyses of numerical simulations of the ocean. There's 3 different tracks that you could study the ocean. One is theory, where you just push it forward with pencil and paper and equations that describe the ocean movement. And there's another one where you go out on ships and take direct measurements by installing instruments into the ocean. And that would also include also looking at the ocean from satellites. So like just directly looking at the ocean through sensors and instruments. And the third is using numerical models, where you basically put the equations that describe the ocean motion into the computer. The computer solves the equations and outputs, solutions to the equations to the best of the ability that the computer can compute in a way. Like, I guess an analogy would be a financial model where there's an equation that describes the financial market. The computer solves it and then spits out, I guess, like predictions of when the market's going to crash, whether the market's going to grow, these sort of things. Conceptually the same thing, but the equations are just equations that describe the ocean.
Друзья, хотели бы вы выучить русский язык? Если да, то приглашаем вас на наши бесплатные уроки по изучению русского языка. Oh, sorry. Friends, would you like to learn Russian? If so, we invite you to our Russian language lessons. They are completely free and are held in small groups. For your convenience, our teachers offer lessons in several languages. The link to our educational Telegram channel is in the description.
I use these numerical tools at the moment mostly to use. So just because you have a solution to an equation doesn't mean you understand the solution in a way. Like it's similar. You get like a picture, and that doesn't mean you understand the story behind the picture. So in a similar way, you get like out like
How it came about.
Yeah. So my job is to understand in a humanly possible way of like how the computer came to such solutions.
Wow. It's really cool. Not gonna lie. With that in mind, you obviously had a lot of experience in international communities. What in terms of how advanced the technologies that are provided here by the university, are they more advanced, the same as in, for example, the same, like, are they more advanced than in Japan? Are they less advanced than in the States? Or
So I think there's some historical context that needs to be made for this. So currently, Russia doesn't really have a supercomputer dedicated specifically for, or like a national supercomputer dedicated specifically for climate or ocean science.
unlike
Unlike the US or Japan or Europe. And I think this partially has to do with a lot of research in my field within Russia, at least took part within international collaboration. And you could offload basically the burden or resources of computation to other places that have these fancy computational tools. But now with the sanctions, these collaborations have kind of halted. So they're so this is hearsay, but I've been told that funding has been approved for within Russia to create a new, basically national supercomputer. That would allow the Russian scientific community to internally close the loop in terms of research, of having the necessary computational resources to do all the, like, let's say, like fancy science. At the moment, we're still partially offloading this computational requirement to Europe. Yeah.
Cool.
Sort of unofficially.
Unofficially, what does that mean?
I'm not sure if like the European, like higher people up, figured out that we were using their resources.
How is that possible? I mean, so much information goes back and forth, and you kind of make a deal.
Yeah, but that's the nice thing about bureaucracy being layered, I suppose. It takes a long time for information to creep all the way up to the top.
Okay, so we gotta wait and fingers crossed that it doesn't, does it?
Or maybe they'll be fine. I don't know. This is just my guess, but based on where Europe's going, I don't think they're going to be particularly happy about it.
For sure, definitely. In terms of that, regarding how are Russian scientists treated differently by the international scientific community because of the SMO, or is that not really an influence on like how research is evaluated and the success of Russian scientists in the field?
In the West, a lot of like scientific success is measured upon the number of citations you get on your publications. And yes, I do see some, Western scientists tend to cite Western scientists more than like Russian scientists. Then they would cite Russian scientists. So in that sense, yes, I think there is some handicap. But And at international conferences too, I have noticed once they know that I am situated in Russia, yeah, some people do change their tone. And I assume if I was a Russian working in Russia, that tone would be harsher perhaps. But the fact that I'm non-Russian in a Russian academia sometimes seems to confuse them how they react. Basically,
What's it like?
well, some people just stop talking. Some people will. Well, yeah, I guess that's the most extreme reaction that I've had, that they won't talk to me, even though we've known each other for a while. But the flip side is, and to me this was an interesting development, but a lot of Chinese scientists now recognize me in a positive manner.
Whoa.
Like, be like, oh, you're the guy who like went to the West for higher education, but then you left.
So that's the rep you're having in the community, huh?
Yeah, and specifically from Chinese scientists. And there's a lot of them now. I mean, the scientific like competence or level from Chinese institutions has like remarkably grown, like improved. And I have noticed this in the quality of papers that come out from Chinese institutions, and just also the sheer number of scientists I see at international conferences nowadays. So yeah, that's been kind of nice. I guess I lost some connections, but now I'm making new connections as well.
Yeah, and it's good to know that research is being contributed to better by the community. That's amazing.
Yeah.
For the field. I totally relate, because at some point, when you basically do, I mean, I'm a humanities person, but still, it really, you kind of appreciate really good research in any field when you kind of read all those papers, and you realize that there are some things that are just being mentioned better and like that are clear. It's really so nice to have an impact better. So it's great that it's basically happening. I really understand. Now, basically to the technicalities, your HQS visa, how did you obtain it and what was the process like?
The process itself was a nightmare, but
Do tell.
Yeah, but how I got it was so personally, so I've been in the US for 12 years, and basically in the most simple terms, I got bored of the US. Like I got bored of its politics, bored of, I don't know, lifestyle there. I felt like I figured out the US to my satisfaction as a system and culture. So it was kind of like a time where I was like, I had the choice of like staying there long term, but I was like, maybe this. I just felt that this might not be it for me to stay. And right around then, well, the SMO started. And because of this, a lot of international collaborations that Russia had stopped. And so what Russia did was that it decided to build up its own scientific base. And as part of this effort, at FISTECH, they opened a new lab, specifically targeting climate science. And the head of the lab, I happen to know personally from before my previous interactions. They notified me about this position opening. Just asked whether I would be interested in joining as a new lab member. So yeah, that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
Regarding the visa.
Oh yeah, so the reason why it was a nightmare was, first of all, international paper mail between the US and Russia is no longer a service. So it was a real problem how I would get like my hand-signed contract sent to Russia.
How did you do it?
So what we ended up doing is I sent my signed contracts to a colleague in France who was Russian, and he took it in person back to Russia. Mm-hmm. So without that, I don't know, I suppose it would have gone through Estonia or something, through these like private carriers. But yeah, and then also the Russian embassy in the US no longer provides service for non-Russians, meaning they don't do visa services anymore. So yeah, I went back to Japan specifically to do the visa process, which to me was okay. I got to spend a month in Japan with family and stuff. So just there were additional steps at every step of the way.
Did you have an interview?
Yeah. Zoom.
Is that tough? What kind of questions did they ask?
Like, what are your research ideas?
Oh, okay.
How do you intend to collaborate with the lab members?
Oh, no, I mean for the visa.
Oh, visa?
Yeah.
Oh, that was super easy. Like in Japan, at least, the Russian embassy in Japan offloads visa processing to a visa center. They seemed surprised that there was a Japanese who was going to go to Russia, but because I assume there's not that many. But they were like, okay. And they took it and I got it back in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice. And your first flight into Russia, how long is the flight from Japan to Russia? Like 8-ish hours?
Direct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the first impression you had when you kind of boarded up the plane?
I came to Russia without having ever been to Russia. A lot of the expats that I've, got to know here have moved here after at least visiting here once or something.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like straight off the bat. I honestly had no idea what to expect. Based on the propaganda, you might as be going to Mars if you're going to Russia.
That's a great comparison, actually. I'm not going to lie.
I got off the plane and I was like, this is just very normal. So that was kind of the actual shock. Like, people ask me, like, what's the culture shock of you coming to Russia? And my honest answer is, my shock is that it's just like anywhere else.
Great. Then how is your Russian and how do you get around, and any funny stories related to the language barrier, so to say?
I don't think I have very funny stories, but I think Russian grammar it's unnecessary.
Fugazi, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart.
I don't understand why there's so many different, in English it's called cases.
Yeah.
To me it's like nonsense. I mean it has a logic, but I find it unnecessary logic. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I like learning languages where I live at. So, the process in general of learning Russian. I have hired a private tutor.
Oh.
We have Zoom classes twice a week. And that in itself is, I would say in general enjoyable. And how I get around, I feel like within Moscow, this was one surprising thing. Russians speak way more English than the French.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even outside of Moscow?
Oh, that I don't.
Yeah, okay. That makes total sense.
But if you make a comparison between Paris and Moscow, yes, definitely people in Moscow speak way more English than in Paris.
Wow.
And French don't, even if they can speak English, they don't like to speak English. So perhaps there's a bias there that it's harder to use English in Paris. But yeah, as an overall, personal experience as a foreigner, getting around Moscow is much easier than in Paris using English.
Do you find that there's like all the notifications on the street or whatever? Is that anyhow convenient? Like, for example, when the metro stations are spelled in English, is that of any help, or is it just ridiculous because it's like spelled with like how the Russian transliteration is not helpful at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I've been able to pick up the Russian character alphabets pretty quickly. So at this point, I just look at the Russian characters and I'm able to, understand the pronunciation of the stations and stuff. So the period that I relied on Roman alphabets for subways at least was very short for me, I would say. Well, yeah, one hassle, I guess, is that the GPS here is jacked. So you kind of have to really triangulate yourself on the map of, okay, this street number is here and this. But But yeah, fortunately, the streets are well. I mean, there's a lot of placards
Yeah.
that show the street numbers, so
So,
it's just a little bit of effort, but it's fine.
yeah, and it wasn't like that before. So it started with a SML, and it's like ridiculous
I understand.
to get like in the center, especially like closer to like Kremlin and stuff. It's crazy with like taxis and everything because like nothing's working. Yeah, how do you find your way past that? So, for example, when you're ordering a taxi in the center.
Oh yeah, so I just don't order taxis most of the times because to me, figuring out where to order the taxi is more difficult than actually me just walking home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. You are planning a trip to Baikal,
Yeah.
right? What's it like to plan a trip, a tourist trip in Russia, around Russia?
Well, I booked this through sort of like expat connections.
Uh-huh.
So for me, I just told the person in charge that I'm interested in joining. I would definitely not be able to do this without a proper guide, probably. I mean, my Russian is not at that level. I have no idea what Russia is like, around Irkutsk.
Well, you'll know soon.
So, unless you're comfortable with the Russian, I don't think I would recommend like a foreign tourist to just wander around on their own.
So as to avoid getting lost.
Yeah, getting lost. In general, just finding your way around for things.
How is it with the Russian authorities when you like had to get registered? Is that any difficult? Like, do you experience any difficulty, or did you have someone help you around with that as well?
So the university international office was very helpful. Foreigners who get any kind of visas that allow them to work, they have to go through Saharovo.
Yeah,
the Moscow region.
not only foreigners. Yeah, it's everybody.
There was an issue with my paperwork the first time we tried. And basically the immigration police, so my petition or application got rejected. So the university had to redo the entire paper process, which took an additional 2 weeks, I guess. But yeah, the second time I went alone because I guess I figured out how things sort of work based on like watching the University International Office person, like, going to which window and stuff. So I was pretty happy that I managed to get everything done alone. I barely spoke any Russian there, but
that's really a success.
Gave my paper and they were like, okay.
Amazing. That's good to hear that someone has a positive experience. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, you just have to wait. So you just open up a whole day for that.
And now basically to living in 3 different countries. The starkest contrast between Russia and Japan, so that's something we discussed earlier on, and the States in terms of the academia, in terms of an academic experience. We were talking about a hierarchy.
Yeah.
What's it's really like? And what basically in terms of academia have you experienced in one country that you couldn't have experienced in any other one?
I think this is fair to say that the academia in the US has been one of the most successful examples in attracting talent internationally, I mean. And that partially has to do with, if there's one thing that the US is very adapted to, is immigration. So their immigration system is very flexible to all kinds of accommodations. And based on this, the hiring process is also very adapted to hiring foreigners. So, meaning there's just less paperwork. And issuing visas up until now has been also a pretty straightforward process. So in the logistical sense, that's one uniqueness about the US in terms of foreigners coming to work for the US. Because it's used to like sort of people coming and going. There's also a lot more positions based on contracts. Meaning you're not sort of like locked in for life type of position. So they'll like increase the number of hires based on like a scientific funding being approved. There's just more funding, so we can hire more people. And it'll be like, you know, like a 3-year contract. And after that, we're not sure if we can keep you. You know, if there's more funding that continues, we'll continue. If not, you know, that'll be it. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of positions. In academia, they're called soft money positions as opposed to hard money positions. So hard money positions are where, you know, university actually hires you for life as a professor. So yeah, that's, in a way, that's what I find very unique about the US. They are able to attract talent on like when they need it. Yeah, I think Japan and Russia definitely have fewer of these positions. And in terms of job security, it's nice that, you know, when you're young, like in your 20s, you don't really care. You get like a 3-year position. You're like, yeah, sure, I get to go abroad, I'll have fun. But as you get more and more into like a senior position, foreigners in the US really do struggle, like in terms of planning out like a stable future. Like you're always on the hook of, well, what if my funding runs out? What am I going to do then, kind of thing. So, I mean, there's pros and cons. Like Russia and Japan don't have this flexibility, but, you know, they don't give like false promises in a way. It's like, yeah, if you don't make the cut for like a permanent hire, then, you know, go find something else, you know. I guess in a way they're kind of honest in that way. They don't be like, yeah, maybe we can keep you, but maybe not. But, you know, we have money for 3 years, so come work for us, kind of.
And about living in Russia, you have been here for how long again?
I came in February, so...
Oh, almost a year.
Yeah, so now it's like 10 months.
Yeah, so months. So far, what has living in Russia taught you?
Oh, that everyday citizens are the same everywhere. That they just want a happy and peaceful life. Which, you know, might sound obvious, but when you're bogged down in like all of the busyness of life and I guess propaganda, it's perhaps not that obvious. But so yeah, in a way, I'm very happy that I got to come see Russia for my own eyes. I mean, I never had a negative opinion about Russia, but at the same time, wasn't positive either. So, I mean, before coming here. So the question was, what have I learned?
Yeah, what has living in Russia taught you? Maybe something like, I don't know, resilience with the weather, because we haven't seen the sun in like more than 2 weeks, as you all know. So I don't know, something like that, like an everyday.
Yeah, well, I guess like there's a saying that if you can make it to New York, you can make it everywhere. But I would just say flip that, like in current times, like if you can make it to Russia, I think you can make it anywhere as a foreigner from the West. But yeah, so I guess that's what it's taught me, you know, life goes on. You make what you can with it. Yeah, and I don't know, if you have any interest in something, I would say just do it and figure it out after you do it, whether or not you like it or not.
Gotcha. Great, Takaya, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, guys, look forward to more new videos. As you all know, we have free Russian lessons that you're very welcome to take part in. So, or you can do private lessons like, for example, Takaya is doing, because our teachers also offer private lessons. So you just reach out to them and you kind of negotiate on your terms. And more useful migration information on our Live Do Business in Russia channel. And yeah, good stuff. Thank you guys. And thank you again, Takaya. It's been great doing this with you. Have a great one. Bye. Thank you for watching our video to the end. If you already live in Russia or are just starting out and would like to share your experience relocating to Russia with others, please contact us. We'd be happy to feature your story on our channel or in our partnership projects with Russia Today. You'll find our contact information in the description. See you again soon.